What's up, brother, man? Welcome into another podcast. How you doing, Puma?
I'm doing good, man. Just rocking out to some the intro music. Saw the lovely new graphic. Again, it's the dawn of a new era around here. But we had a good championship weekend. One game that I did not expect to go the way that it went, and the other game it looked kind of straight out of the WWE at one point. But Jay, we have some breaking news before we even started recording. A couple of head coaching vacancies got filled.
Absolutely. So right before we came on to do the podcast tonight, Sean Payton has been confirmed to the Denver Broncos, and then D'Amico Ryan has been confirmed as the head coach of the Houston Texans. So it looks like they threw the bag at Sean Payton to somehow try to fix Russell Wilson, right? That's basically what the gist of this is, right? How much money did the Walmart family have to give to Sean Payton to walk down the road of trying to fix Russell Wilson?
Right. And it's kind of interesting because I honestly thought, and we were talking about this last week on the pod, that the Sean Payton sweepstakes might be over and maybe he was going back to TV because the market seemed to have really dried up on him. And honestly, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago as well, too, of how I did not think the Broncos were completely out on Jim Harbaugh. And it sounds like by all reports that they did a last-ditch effort. They flew up to, I believe he has residency in Ann Arbor or pretty close to Ann Arbor up in Michigan, to visit with him and go over some potential details. But he decided to just, turn them down and stay, at the University of Michigan, which makes me think, Michigan is going to pay him handsomely because you've pointed out in the past that he took a pay cut essentially to stay as the head coach of Michigan. But getting back to Sean Payton, the market seemed to have dried up on him. And then in the 11th and 12th hour, the Walton family was like, you know what? Like, damn the torpedoes.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to give you our first round draft pick that we got from the Dolphins for the Bradley Chubb trade, in a second round pick this year and a third round pick next year just to get the contract right. So like now they gave the allocations. Yeah. So it was a first rounder, a second rounder this year, and then the following year, so that's 2024, it's a third round pick, I believe.
Wow.
Plus,
that's a lot.
And they haven't even hammered out the contract yet. That's just to get the contract rights from New Orleans over to Denver. Yeah. But you sunk that much money into Russell Wilson, and on paper that offense should have been top 10 in the league, right? Like you have Cortland Sutton, you have Jerry Jeudy, who's going to be coming up on the end of his rookie contract pretty soon. And Javonte Williams should be back from his knee injury. Like, this roster is good to go. And even on the defense, after getting rid of Bradley Chubb, like that's still a top 10 defense. So if they can fix Russell Wilson, if Sean Payton's able to fix Russell Wilson, this will be worth the fortune that they paid in gold, essentially, just to negotiate with him.
Well, I think it's one of those situations for the Broncos where they're down the rabbit hole now because they had to pay so much money to Russell Wilson that you can't, now you got to invest more money to the team by bringing in a Sean Payton to somehow fix Russell Wilson, right? That division is not getting easier. The AFC winner is in your division, the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not going anywhere. Looks like the Los Angeles Chargers are loading up. They've got Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. We'll talk about that later on. The Raiders, I mean, they, as much as, we bag on the Raiders, they're definitely a team you've got to, keep an eye on because they've got so much talent. And who the hell knows, Tom Brady might end up in Las Vegas. So this is one of those moves where the the Broncos had to make just to somehow stay relevant in that division, even if it doesn't pan out. Even if it's a train wreck and they're at the bottom of the league again, you've got to have some buzz around the head coaching. Because coming off Nathaniel Hackett, you've got to have a Sean Payton type of hire. You've got to get that fan base energized again. Like the Denver Bronco fan base was down and out for a while. I mean, those guys were, some of the stuff you heard this year, whether it was on radio or through Mark Schlereth, who's a former Denver Bronco, and he kind of reports on the tenor of the town. It seems like it was slim pickings and it was kind of down in the dumps in Denver. So hopefully those guys can turn around. I'm a fan of Russell Wilson. I'm a fan of Sean Payton. I think both of them are winners, and I think they corrected. It's just going to take some fine tuning, and I think you'll see a different Russell Wilson next year. I think under Sean Payton, like if Sean Payton can't fix Russell Wilson, then he's cashed. He's basically washed. He might as well go ahead and retire. But with what Sean Payton did with Drew Brees, who's basically I mean, basically, he's basically the same thing as Russell Wilson, undersized, guy. Obviously, Drew Brees was not as thick, muscular as Russell Wilson is. Maybe Russell Wilson has a tad bit better arm, but regardless, both are short, limited quarterbacks that I think could work in the Sean Payton system.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think of like the parallels too, like Drew Brees was on the scrap heap. Like he had that
Hmm.
bad shoulder injury at the end of his tenure in the Chargers, and like they weren't sure if he was going to play again just because of how bad the injury was. And I don't think a lot of coaches wanted to put their career on whether or not this dude was going to be able to function as a quarterback anymore. And I think you're starting to see that with Russell Wilson. And hell, I even said it at points last season of is Russell like really like the dude that we thought he was touted to be, or did like
Hmm.
Pete Carroll, mask his issues by trying to run the ball like it was 1985, and then you would have the occasional moon ball to Tyler Lockett or a DK Metcalf, or even when Percy Harvin was there and he was like the Swiss Army knife of that offense at times. So now it's going to be interesting to see, like, can Sean Payton recreate that magic? And honestly, I think he's going to have to, like you said, Jay. Like, it's the damn the torpedoes approach.
Yep.
And I believe, just reading some of the tea leaves, like the Walton family did like D'Amico Ryan as a potential head coach, and a couple,
Yeah.
Gannon, I believe he's the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, but their experience was just so god awful with Nathaniel Hackett as a first year head coach. Like they didn't want to go down that route. So that's why you saw like more Harbaugh buzz and more Dan Quinn buzz. And, he turned his nose up and said he's going back to Dallas. But
Hmm.
no, all in all, for what's on the line and what's at stake, and for a new ownership group, and you had fans literally counting down the play clock at times last year, like they had to make this move.
Yeah, of course. And moving on to the other big hire, and we'll hit on this real quick. D'Amico Ryan ends up going back to Houston Texans. He's the head coach now going forward. He was there with Brian Cushing, JJ Watt. They had quite a bit of success on defense down there for a while. So he looks like he's going back home. It looks like the Houston Texans targeted him as their next head coach. Now, for D'Amico Ryan's sake, like, I feel bad for him because I truly believe the Houston Texans are where careers go to die, whether it's quarterback careers, coaching careers. I'm just sorry, like I just don't think that that ownership group and that team in general isn't built out of a winning formula. And I'm sorry, like I know he's probably going to go in there, probably take another quarterback and start again. And I think maybe the allure of him going to Houston was the fact that he'll take a rookie quarterback and he'll buy himself 2 or 3 years. He'll buy himself some time. Where if you're going to Denver, you've got to win now, right? So maybe that's one of the factors that D'Amico Ryan's thought about when he was considering where he would go. But I do feel bad for D'Amico because I'm sorry, like I don't see him winning that division anytime soon. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the rise. The Tennessee Titans, as much as we crap on those guys and how they've kind of faltered, they're still a good football team led by a very good prominent head coach who's going to get things fixed. And if they can figure out the quarterback situation, that's going to be a tough one as well. And then the Colts, I mean, they're a dumpster fire at the moment, but they also got some talent. So who the hell knows? But I don't see this being an easy fix for D'Amico. Hopefully he's happy there because it's going to be a long uphill battle, and I'm happy that and I'm hoping that he's happy that he's home, and that's what he's going to fall back on some of those tough years coming up ahead for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, one of the driving factors was, essentially like it is a homecoming. Like he was a second round draft pick in 2006 by the team. I believe he was 2006 defensive rookie of the year as well, too. So like, he wanted to come home, and God bless him. Like, hey, Houston, all right. There are some pieces that they can build around, with Damian Pierce, and, that defense did have some flashes last year.
Hmm.
Like they're actually like pretty decent against the run. But D'Amico Bryant's, I think, he's gonna have a lot of potential buy-in from the players on that roster because they're gonna have a coach that actually played the position fairly recently as well, too. And the success he had, with the San Francisco 49ers, maybe not counting last week, but that's a whole different story. But all in all, like in totality, I think the McNair family, has seen D'Amico Ryan as a player, and clearly they think
Hmm.
it's going to translate as a head coach. And Jay, I just hope like his tenure lasts longer than David Culley and Lovie Smith. And I want to see how like his relationship is going to work with like Nick Caserio, because going
Mhm.
into this offseason and towards the stretch I guess this season, um, Casario hot seat was a little bit past like lukewarm. Like
Yep.
it sounded like there was some rumblings coming out of Houston that Nick Casario might be on borrowed time, especially after like the Jack Easterby, firing. I believe it was, by week 4 or 5 last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know before we recorded, Ian Rappaport broke that the Texans requested permission to interview passing game coordinator Bobby Slowick from the 49ers as their
Mm.
potential offensive coordinator. So, there's a little bit of familiarity if they do get the, permission granted and he interviews for the OC job. Now you have a Kyle Shanahan, coaching tree disciple as well too with you, and, has an idea of what kind of offense you want to run. The pairing would make sense. And now it's just whether or not, they're going to take, the Alabama quarterback or your boy from Ohio State. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So, what do you think they're gonna do here? Do you think they obviously still too early for draft talk here? But do you think is there any indication of where Houston might go? Does Nick Casario has he floated anything? The general wisdom says that conventional wisdom says that Bryce Young is the number one overall pick, and you should go with him. But like CJ Stroud's also out there, and me, I'm not high on either one of these quarterbacks. I would personally go with Will Levis. I think he is probably the best suited for the NFL game. But unfortunately, his resume in college is not going to live up to CJ Stroud and Bryce Young's. But what do you think they do? Just a shot in the dark here. Do you think they go with Bryce Young or CJ? What's your thought process on that?
Well, the team did like their own little mock draft. I saw this on Instagram the other day, and I mean their mock had Bryce Young going as their first pick, and I kind of lean that way just because of like the Casario Bill Belichick connection, and which also means you probably have a little bit of a connection with Nick Saban by proxy. So
Yeah.
maybe that's it. But that's kind of where I lean at the moment.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, brother.